And we've been going through Matthew chapter 13. We've been talking about a number of parables that he gave. Today, I want to invite you to turn there again, Matthew chapter 13. We're going to read beginning at verse 44. At the end of chapter 13 contains 7 what's called the kingdom parables of Jesus. We've talked about a few of them. Today, there are 3 more that end this passage. And we're going to spend some time reading those, beginning in verse 44. If you don't have your own Bibles with you, there are Bibles in the chairs in front of you. I want to invite you to take those Bibles out. You can find the passage we're going to be reading on page 691. I think it'll help you as you not only hear the word as it's read, but also see it on the written page. And we're going to read together these verses. Now, what we're about to read, let me just give you a little something to get us started here. What we're about to read, there are 3 kingdom parables that finish chapter 13. Probably, if you've ever heard a sermon on any of these parables, you have not heard these parables put together in the same sermon. I want to try to suggest to you that if you look carefully at this passage, that definitely these 3 parables should go together. And I'll show you why. Beginning in verse 44, you find these words, "The kingdom of heaven is like." And then if you look at verse 45, you see these words, "Again, the kingdom of heaven is like." And then if you look at verse 47, which starts the 3rd parable, you find these words, "Once again, the kingdom of heaven is like." So there are these 3 kingdom parables. They all begin the same way. They all have their own meaning, their own shade of interpretation. Again, you don't often find them together, but I want to, just by pointing that out, show you that all 3 of these parables are meant to be read together. Jesus set them together. Matthew grouped them together, and it's as though each parable helps us understand the other. So beginning in verse 44, Jesus says, "The kingdom of heaven is like treasure hidden in a field. When a man found it, he hid it again. And then in his joy went and sold all he had and bought that field." Again, Jesus says, "The kingdom of heaven is like a merchant looking for fine pearls. When he found one of great value, he went away and sold everything he had and bought it." Once again, Jesus said, "The kingdom of heaven is like a net that was let down into the lake and caught all kinds of fish. When it was full, the fishermen pulled it up on the shore. Then they sat down and collected the good fish in baskets, but threw away the bad." Then Jesus says, "This is how it will be at the end of the age. The angels will come and separate the wicked from the righteous and throw them into the fiery furnace where there'll be weeping and gnashing of teeth." "Have you understood all these things?" Jesus asked. "Yes," they replied. So he said to them, "Therefore, every teacher of the law who has been instructed about the kingdom of heaven is like the owner of a house who brings out of his storeroom new treasures as well as old." And so with these 3 parables, Jesus taught about the kingdom. Now, a parable is just a simple story taken from everyday life. I happen to think that probably as Jesus told most of these parables, he was seeing something. Perhaps as he told the parable of the net, he was standing beside the Sea of Galilee. There were fishermen out fishing. They were dragging their nets. And Jesus said, "Yeah, that's what my kingdom is like. It's like fishermen who let down a net." I happen to think that's probably how Jesus taught it. And each of these illustrations or parables from everyday life have this deeper meaning which Jesus intends to teach us about his kingdom. I want to start with the 3rd parable, the parable of the net. And to be honest with you, I've been kind of thinking all week about how to present this, and just decided that the best way is to try and give the most clear explanation of what it was that Jesus was teaching as he said these very words of God. So the parable begins this way. It says, "The kingdom of heaven is like a net that was let down into the lake and caught all kinds of fish. When it was full, the fishermen pulled it up on the shore. They sat down and collected the good fish in baskets, but threw away the bad." Now, just so happened, as many of you know, my wife and I were in Israel, and Not that long ago, we were by the Sea of Galilee, and it so happened that I had an opportunity to see something just like this. One night after we'd gone out, we'd been touring various different places. Our hotel was right by the Sea of Galilee. I thought, I can't come all the way here and not go for a swim. So I actually went out. It was dark at night. I found a place where I could get into the Sea of Galilee, and I went out for a swim. I kind of swam out a way, and there was a boat not that far from me, and there were fishermen who were actually fishing in a way that sounds a lot like what Jesus describes in this parable. They had this dragnet that they were using, and with it, as they went about fishing, they were in their net catching all kinds of fish. And probably, as you just imagine what this must have looked like, you can get an idea of it as well. Jesus is talking about fishermen. And in that day, apparently, there was two different ways that they did this with these drag nets that have floats on the top of the net, weights at the bottom of the net, and there would be ropes that either you'd send out with two boats. So there'd be a boat over here and a boat over there. They'd hold the net in between, and they would just indiscriminately catch all kind of fish. Whatever floated that was, large enough to be caught in the net would be caught in that net as they went. Another way that sometimes apparently they did it was people would hold the rope on the shore, and then the boat would go out, and again, whatever was in the way of that drag net would be scooped up by the net. And I think in this picture, Jesus has a couple of different things in mind. First, the net, which just as the boats go by, as someone holds the rope, it indiscriminately catches all kinds of fish. That's the first picture. But when that process is done, there's a process of discrimination. As the fishermen then bring that net up onto shore, they look at the fish they've caught, and they somehow sort through these fish, the good and the bad. And exactly why they sorted one fish and kept them, and why they sent the other back, some suggest that maybe it has to do with Old Testament kosher laws, that some fish you would eat, some fish were unclean. Some just think that it was like fishermen today. There's some that are big enough, you want to keep them. There's some that you just throw back. Whatever the reason, there appears to be this process of sorting through the fish. So you got that, right? Two stages. The net, which just catches everything indiscriminately. And then the second stage, the fishermen, who then later take everything that's in the net and sort them out, putting the good fish in baskets, throwing the rest aside. Jesus, after giving this picture, interprets the parable. He says, beginning in verse 49, this process that you see is how it will be at the end of the age. The angels will come and separate the wicked from the righteous and throw them into the fiery furnace, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Again, I kind of struggled all week long thinking about how I was going to present this, and just decided I have to say as clearly as I possibly can what Jesus meant by this parable. I think the net more or less represents the church. And there are all kinds of people that are caught into the life of the church. At some point, Jesus says, there's going to be a sorting. The good from the bad. Those that will be kept, those that will be thrown away. And he says at some point, as those fish are scooped out in the net of the church, there's not going to be this indiscriminate way in which they're caught anymore. The angels are going to sort them out, those who go away to eternal life, and those who will be thrown into a fiery furnace where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. So as you think about the church, maybe as you think about this group of people right here, there are people who are in this room for a variety of reasons. In one way or another, they've been caught into the net of the church's life. At some point, there's going to be a sorting. And I don't know any nice way to say this, so I just resolved to say it as clearly as possible. Some will be ushered into eternal life. Some will be thrown